Hello.
How are you?
Welcome to the pod.
Good to see you.
You finally made it.
I finally made it on the pod.
And that is the first handshake we have ever had on this pod.
Oh, really? What is it normally?
I feel like, I
Fist
don't know.
bump?
I try not to touch my guests.
Oh, sorry.
First, introduce yourself, Chad here.
I'm Chad Larson. I'm best known as co-founder of M-Kopa, where many of you probably finance your smartphones, and lots of other things too.
Nice.
And longtime Kenyan resident.
Yeah. So we're here to talk about how he's going to finance my dreams. Anyway, I'm kidding. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good as well.
Yeah. Had any interesting guests lately?
This seat, let me tell you, this seat, I like that it's open. I mean, I do miss my co-hosts. I know they're watching, so I have to say this.
Yeah.
But I do like having this seat rotating because everybody has a story. Everybody has something, to say. Mm-hmm. Interesting opinions. I learn so much. So today I'm really excited to learn from you.
How many of your guests would you say what percentage are like wage earning, PAYE paying people versus like artists and singers and all sorts of other things?
I try to have a healthy balance. You have to have friends who you can be able to ask for money because they receive an end salary.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I try to keep it balanced. No, we have here. It's not just about the arts. We have politicians. We have business people. We have all sorts. The other day I had somebody who I told guys here on the pod. Well, that episode is not out, but there's a guy who published a book about marijuana.
Oh yeah, it's a Kenyan guy.
Yes, it's the size of I know your age, so a yellow pages.
Yes, okay.
I had to say that. I know
that
your
thick
age.
though, or that really?
It's that thick.
Wow,
that's why I've said yellow pages.
Is it like a catalog of
exactly? And it's like the history of marijuana, the everything.
Interesting.
It doesn't. The most interesting part?
Tell me.
He's 21.
Oh wow. Heavily researched.
Do you know where I found the book?
Tell me.
My doorstep. Of my house.
Oh, so it's delivered to you like the yellow pages. It's free.
Ran crazy. Like, how did he even know where I live? Anyway, but yeah. So I'm going through the book because I want him to come sit here. So yes, we invite everybody.
That's nice. Very good. Do you still buy books these days?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
you'd think, I just wonder in 2025 if you wanted to publish your research on the history of marijuana or whatever. Wouldn't you just do it more in a bunch of little TikToks, little bite-sized pieces? That might be the way somebody will do that in the future.
Yeah.
Or that's way more palatable for me.
But I do feel there is always the need of, because I remember there's a time, no, I like paperback. I like having to do this.
I also want a souvenir and to show off a book I read or intend to read.
What am I going to put on my shelf?
Right, exactly.
What am I going to carry when I'm going to the beach?
Yeah.
Which I'm going to come back with unopened.
Well, also, here's another thing that's sort of creepy that I want the paper books. It's like when you buy the Kindle version or the whatever, through a service, you buy it legitimately through Apple Books or whatever, they can change that book. There's these famous ones in the U.S., Tom Sawyer, I don't know if you've heard of this, and it has originally had the N-word in it.
And now it's been edited out?
Now, in some versions, it's edited out. But and then it might not even be your choice. I might be have the Kindle, it's I want the version with the N-word.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying I prefer the,
yeah.
but that, I would like the original, right?
No, I mean, it's a very slippery slope. But I mean, human beings from time immemorial have been doing this. There's this really famous book. It's called it starts with a B.
The Bible?
Bible.
Right.
Yeah, here it has many versions.
Is that right?
Many edited versions.
Yeah.
In some parts, even the main character's race changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Right,
interesting. All I'm telling you is that books, even
I
when
like my Jesus white. I like him looking like he's in a, toothpaste commercial.
Yeah.
Sandy
you know
blonde,
what?
Sandy
even
blonde hair.
Kenyans.
Maybe he was in a 70s rock supergroup, maybe.
I'm telling you, even Kenyans love it. That white pasty stuff, that's the stuff.
I'm always amazed that the Mormon church sticks with that photograph in their billboards.
Yeah.
The Church of Latter-day Saints.
The blonde. But at least he's not blonde. Now he's brunette.
That was the Jesus that was in Supertramp in the 1970s. That's a joke for my age mates in America.
I get it.
Kind of that beautiful. Yeah, but the Mormons
tresses.
Are sticking with it, right?
Yeah.
The tresses.
Yeah, the tresses.
He looks gorgeous.
Those tresses
and that's a nice little lamb next to him.
Here's the craziest part, right? So I'm SDA, right?
Yes.
Raised.
Yes.
So you're SDA, right? Yes. So you know that the Bibles, the Bible stories books that were blue. Yes. They had photo of Jesus and heaven and all that stuff, right? Okay, I don't want to digress, but heaven used to look like Switzerland in those books, right? Technically, you had to grow up to find out that you actually just wanted to go to Switzerland.
I heard you say this before in another podcast.
But this is what's crazy, right? So I just want to confess.
Tell me.
So I'd be seated in church, admiring Jesus' hair.
Yes.
Because, I was just like, wow, that palm is fire.
Yeah.
That palm is goddamn
That's
fire.
what I think.
If I could get that palm,
yeah.
let me see, like, how many curls are those? Like, sometimes that's what I'd be doing. The pastor said, turn to John 15, and you've opened there, and then there's a picture of Jesus. And I'm like, but that's some beautiful hair right there.
If I was Mary Magdalene, I would have just, like, combed his hair, like, at night, just, like, combed his hair.
Honestly, he had
it's gorgeous.
Hair, yeah.
And I don't think he had to condition it. Like, there wasn't even any sort of conditioner back then.
Honestly. And that's the thing.
He was
That's the thing
conditioned
I was
by
thinking
his
about.
soul.
I'm just like, how?
Gorgeous.
Was he keeping it?
Yeah.
Even in the desert.
Right.
It's beautiful. Anyway.
But yeah, the Mormons are sticking with the blonde Jesus, which is it's interesting.
Yeah. Have you seen the Mormon church that was built on Kangemi, in Kangemi?
No, where is it?
Just huge, big. Even there's one just right across here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is
the one of the largest, but the largest temple they built is Kangemi, and the Kangemi Bridge.
So they do an interesting thing. I don't know how long ago, like in the first year after they built a temple, as they call it, visitors can go and anybody can go and see it and whatever. And then after that, it's just Mormons. You have to be converted or baptized or however you get into the church.
They want to first say, just have a look.
Yeah. So did they do that? They must have done that here. Yeah. I wonder if they did that here. They must have. I think that's what they do everywhere.
I don't know about that. I try not to just walk into random churches.
Yeah. Well, you could crash it. See what's up. See what they're talking about.
No.
You know that they.
I already did the SDA thing.
It's an American religion.
I'm carrying a lot already.
Yeah? Is SDA from the U.S. as well?
It is from the U.S.
It is. Are most of these ones, or a lot of these ones are from the U.S.
Mormons as well is from the U.S.
Mormons, of course, yeah. They've even got like theology that takes place in the U.S. Like there were these buried tablets in New York and stuff.
Bro. There's a crazy story. Is it the Mormons who have the story of the guy who was in the forest and then he met the Lord, and then the Lord spoke to him, and he told him about this white heaven for white people?
Oh, really? Maybe.
It's the Mormons.
That's the Mormons, yeah.
That's the Mormons.
Yeah. Have you ever met any Mormons?
Yeah.
They're lovely people.
Yeah, absolutely. I like their communion.
And really successful, too. Like, they just really...
They're
achievers, yeah. When I did my master's in the UK, in my class in the same kind of course of study, there were 210 students, and there were like 3 Mormons, and I thought like, wow, that's like an amazing amount, like a big percent. Like, isn't that a coincidence? Like it's 3 Mormons. But then I talked to people that were like Harvard Business School. They're like, oh yeah, it's packed with Mormons. These Mormons all get their masters of business administration.
Imagine.
They're really big on education.
And success.
Yes.
I and we were actually talking about this with a friend of mine, that the one thing, and I remember when we had coffee, I mentioned to you that the thing I like about SDA is the traditions, the doctrine, right? Yeah. But then the thing I don't like about SDA as well is the doctrine. For SDAs, I think they get what I'm saying. So like the community, family, the teachings, they don't just teach you, like there are churches you go to and they're all just teaching you about hell, fire, hell, But SDA is teaching you about your health, is teaching you about, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, how to interact with other humans, how to read, to study, not read, study the Bible, right? So those things I can get down with. But the other stuff that gets a bit out cuckoos,
Could you help me understand, like, the difference in doctrine? Does it have, like, other books on top of the Bible? Like
Yes.
the Mormon, it does?
yes.
And they're, like, recently written, yeah? It's like your study help, or what are the other books?
So we have a study book, which SDAs, do you have yours?
No.
Yeah. So you have a study.
She left it in the club.
So you have a study book, which it's like Bible study, which is printed by the church. So every SDA knows, like, on this day I'm supposed to be reading about John 10 to John 12, whatever. And the theme is this. And so you read and then write if you have the lesson, write what your thoughts are on this particular topic. And then on Saturday, when you guys meet in church, because you've had day-to-day lessons, you then discuss those topics together and share your insights before now you get into the preaching and all the other stuff. So that's why church is the whole day.
So, and the most noticeable thing for outsiders is the Saturday thing. Could you just tell me what the history, just dumb it down for me tremendously?
That is so crazy. So this is what happens. So if you're a Christian,
yes,
the story goes
Don't ask me some Bible verse.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually not good at cramming Bible. Actually, I almost thought I was like the devil's child because I couldn't remember my Bible verses. And all the kids would be like, John 3:16. I'm like, how do you remember all that shit? Like, how are you going to remember song lyrics if you have Bible verses in your head?
Don't you know Baby Got Back from Sir Mix-a-Lot?
I remember every song I have ever heard. Every lyric I've ever heard, I remember.
Exactly.
But Bible verses?
Yeah, you can't store them all next to the
I didn't write them. I'm sorry. So the story goes that God created the world in 7 days.
Okay.
Right? And the first day he did this, the second day he did that, the third day he did that. And then the seventh day, he rested.
Okay.
The seventh day.
Okay.
Now that's where you get, because in the Bible,
so the first day was Sunday?
Yes.
So the seventh day is Saturday.
Exactly.
And
when
that's
Jesus
the seventh
was
day.
Getting baptized, when Jesus was getting crucified, remember, he had to be crucified before 6 p.m.
Okay.
Because from 6 p.m. Sabbath.
Right.
Right?
Oh, so
exactly.
that's Saturday.
And then he rose on Sunday. But for some strange reason, all the other Christians are like, no, it's Sunday and that's what it is. But it's politics, how it became Sunday. Yeah.
And so did the hardliners in the SDA religion think like that those of us that go to church on Sunday have it wrong?
Let me tell you, if you want to know the how to feel closer to Jesus?
Yeah.
It's simple. You can't even argue with me and you go to church on Sunday. You're even doing the wrong day.
I see.
Are we talking? But God loves you.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But they keep it particularly holy as well, right? Because a lot of times with SDAs, when you're hiring them, like they'll say, I will never work on a Saturday.
Yeah.
They're like kind of regular Christians. I don't think I've ever heard like, I'll never work on a Sunday because that's my Sabbath.
Because they are even worshiping on the wrong day. Do they even know what Sabbath is?
Right. It's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
And plus, think about it. Just think about it. I don't run this company. I don't have shares. And then I have an opportunity to say that I work, my religious freedoms are being infringed on.
Right.
I'm going to throw that any moment I can be able to. I'm not working on Saturday, even if I don't go to church.
I don't think I know that much about the difference between the...
Did you grow up religious? You told me you did grow up religious.
Not at all. I mean, nominally, I was baptized because that was still a thing to do at that time. But then, my parents were never interested, and I don't think they were raised with much of it.
So you don't know about, the Bible and God?
I mean, I've read the Bible since as an adult and recently.
So you grew up like a child, you're just like when...
But I would have read the New Testament for the first... I think the first time I got curious was in my 20s, and I read the New Testament once, and then I tried to get through the Old Testament. But
you never used to go to church?
No. I mean, I remember going a couple times on Easter when my mom was guilted by some other, there was a Catholic family up the street, the Quinns, that used to go every Sunday, but they were the only ones, right? And Catholics were the only ones that I knew as devoted. They were if they identified as Catholic, they went to church, and a lot of them went to Catholic schools instead of the government school. But if you were these Protestant ones, I think I was baptized Lutheran. But I couldn't tell you the difference in doctrine between Lutheran and
So what did you know? At that point, what did you know about,
I mean, I knew that there's this story. I mean, you hear it's not like you don't hear the stories, right? Even on television, there's Christmas stories, telling the Christmas story of the three wise men, and you knew these things. But I wouldn't have known what the Gospels were, or that it was 3 days after he was crucified. Those things I wouldn't have known because I was never in any sort of Bible study unless I absorbed it from pop culture somehow. If they made a joke on a sitcom about Easter, about something for 3 days, then I would have learned it that way, but not from any sort of Bible instruction, and not from the parents.
So you
And my friends weren't really religious either.
And God?
What do you mean?
You didn't have a relationship?
I mean,
spiritual?
I would have said I was Christian if somebody asked, because I knew that was what my parents said. We're Lutheran. Yeah. The one time I was on a Boy Scout camp out, a 2-week camp out when I was 13. And on the Sunday in the middle between the 2 weeks, they had a bus and said the kids who want to go to church can go to church. And there's and I didn't go to church, but I wanted to get out of the campsite because you could get a little trip to the nearest town, right? But I went to it was going to a Catholic church, and I went and I took communion and everything. I had no idea I wasn't supposed to. I didn't know it was a Catholic church and you weren't supposed to.
Did anything happen to you?
Yeah.
What happened?
Probably like the failure that I've made the rest of my life
Get
since
out of
that
there.
point.
No, because I
Probably most of the bad. No, just
I remember going to my friend's church, Catholic, and they happened to be taking the sacrament. And you know, I was in Kiswahili they call it kiherehere. I had kiherehere, kihia, and I wanted to go to the front of the line to go.
Yeah.
They told me. I think they could see, because that's why I don't do crime.
They could tell you weren't Catholic from looking at your face.
God makes examples of me.
Okay.
Right? So I'm there on my way there, and this usher just zeroes in on me, and she's just like, come here, man. This one's for the-" And basically she's like, telling me, I'm going to hell. I'm going, like, they made it seem like this sacrament just had everybody's name on it, and it came from heaven, and it was written, this one is for Sheila, this one is for, and there should be no extras.
Yeah.
And I've always revered it like that. I just thought like people collapse or something after they consume it. And you're here.
But do they do communion at SDA churches? Do you take communion?
We take bread and
Every Sunday?
Ribena. No.
Occasionally.
I don't know. I think it's
the
Easter.
Catholics can't stop it.
It's Easter, is it? I think it's Easter. It's not. We don't just consume any time.
Yeah.
It's just. I think it's Easter.
The other thing I guess that I understand about the difference between like Catholics and the Protestant religion and doctrine is like Mary seems to be a much bigger person for the Catholics. Like, if you go to non-Catholic churches, you don't see Mary, but Mary's everywhere in the Catholic Church.
You know what? I'm actually going to invite a Catholic on this show because I need to understand why. You can go to Catholics in another part of the world and they'll just be like telling you of Saint Christopher, and then like, who the fuck is Christopher? Like, and then they say no, he's a saint. He used to live here and then he died, and we pray because he had saint-like ways. So there's like, in other religions, what we'd call maybe human worshipping, which is frowned upon in religions like ours.
Right. Except the Catholics, they still worship.
Yeah, so to some of us that looks like idol worshiping.
Well, yeah. Well, it's more like, to me, it just looks more like a racket. It's just like somebody's put themselves in between, like what the source material says, which is the Bible, I guess, whatever version you're going off of, and like them, because like the Catholic Church like just made up concepts to make money, right? Like this concept of purgatory doesn't exist in the Bible, and the Catholics basically put it there and said like, if they weren't baptized or they they didn't ask for forgiveness, you stay here, but you can pray them out for a price, and then people would like get the priest to pray to get their loved ones out of purgatory. Completely Catholic invention.
Very, very crazy. But you know what? I've always wondered, as somebody who didn't grow up religious, and I think we've spoken about this maybe 2-3 episodes ago with Shiro, and we're asking, if you don't grow up like with God, right? How do you because a lot of us, we grew up knowing, like, let me use myself as an example. The things that, like, my moral code is best based off of the traditions in the religion, So, for example, there are things that you don't do because I don't want to be on the wrong side of God, or this was what it said in the Bible, right? But you don't have such experience. So where does what's your compass? Who do you hold account? Who's holding you accountable?
Well, I mean, I would say that like Americans, it's like they probably have like absorbed all the Christian values. It's like they don't think murder is good, and they don't think lying is good, and they don't think stealing is good, right? It's just not like it comes from the religion, but maybe it's like it's so embedded in the values there that like you don't even notice it. It's like invisible. It's like oxygen or something. It's just. But people don't really go to church anymore in those places. Though, I've seen what a lot of my friends who didn't grow up with religion have discovered Christianity as an adult, and me too, by the way. And like, so they're like now maybe because it wasn't forced on, they're interested, where maybe if it was forced onto you as like a family obligation, you kind of like, maybe think differently about it. I don't know.
And what's your journey like now? Now discovering it as an adult.
Well, I mean,
what are you most interested in?
I mean,
what's the pool?
The coolest concept in Christianity is like the forgiveness that like you could have just, basically anything you've done, you can basically be a better person from that time forward. And like what you did 2 years ago isn't part of your identity. So it's like, I always was the guy with the bad temper. So that's my identity. So, I've already pissed off everybody when I get mad. So I may as well keep doing it because I'm just a bad tempered guy, right? Like knowing it's like, hey, no, that's like snapping at somebody's a choice, and like you can basically change your identity where that doesn't have to be any part of your future identity, and you're forgiven for all that stuff in the past. I mean, the other one just practically that it helped me with the relief of is I always used to not realize it, but I had this guilt all the time about my to-do list. Like there was always like 20 things that's like, I shouldn't be fucking around right now on YouTube. I should be doing this, whatever. Like I kind of don't feel like that anymore. I kind of like somehow still the work gets done at the same pace, like not any fast. Like I'm not any work. Like all that guilt didn't help me. Like I still kind of get stuff done at a pace, and when I want to chill, I chill and whatever. But now I don't feel guilty so much anymore.
It's interesting
of
you
that
mentioned
stuff,
this.
and it's the to-do list that used to always just hang in my head. I was always thinking about anytime I was enjoying myself or doing something, whatever. It's like I was thinking about what I wasn't doing.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned this because, and I'm asking you this because a lot of young people on the continent are on the reverse, right? So we were raised with religion. And actually, I'm not even just going to speak for Africans. I feel like a lot of people who are raised religious are walking away and there, and you know, you ask why. Oh, it was a lot of lies. I don't believe it. I don't believe the stories. It's fake. Now, you know, there's the story of the Ethiopian Bible, right? Jesus wasn't white, right?
Yeah.
And then there's fundamentalists who are like, you are not going to mess with my foundation. I'm going to stick with it as it is, right? But to find, I don't think I've ever met somebody saying, as an adult, I'm now curious for myself and I'm going in.
There's a lot of Americans I know that like whatever, and I think it's like, it's probably just things swing back and forth, and if something wasn't forced on you, then it's like you're more interested in like what it can do, so. I mean, I know probably 1% maybe of what I need to know. I'm just like a complete learner. But that forgiveness hack has been like mind-blowing, and like I feel like even though I only understand a little bit of that, it's like been just hugely helpful.
Nice. Have you tried any other religions?
Not really. No, I haven't tried any other religions. Like I've only been a regular churchgoer for the last couple of years, and maybe in my whole life before that, I went a bit with my kids, but then sort of stopped. But then earlier, like as a child, it's like I went like 10 times, including the time I wasn't supposed to go and took the communion. You know, it was like. Yeah, it's like I've done more, church going. So what was the question? I forgot what you asked me.
No, you answered it. So I want to ask, so you grew up in America. You were born and raised
Minnesota,
in America. And you came to Kenya 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. To start M-Kopa with my two partners, Jesse and Nick. Would you date a guy who had an M-Kopa phone?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You know, the average African's dream is to go to the States.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, because we used to watch a lot of American TV. I think even now, I was just on the last episode talking about a show I watched over the weekend. Wow. Hot stuff. But I digress. But we grew up watching American TV, and actually, a few episodes ago, I was talking with another lady, and I asked her, if she's ever wanted to go to Russia.
Yeah.
And she said she's not had anything nice. And I asked, where do you get your news about Russia from?
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to go to Russia?
I would love to go to Russia. I would love to see what life is like there.
It's because a lot of us get our information from America.
Yeah.
American TV, right? If you watch American TV, there is no way you want to travel to Russia. There is no way you're ever going to think about Iraq as a nice place. There's no way you're ever going to think about Saudi Arabia as a, there's whoever America doesn't like, if you watch TV, it becomes your enemy, right? So with the same respect, every person on this continent, at some point, right? Okay, let me not say every, because I know that those ones are like me, I'm never sour. You're except you, right? Every person on this continent at some point has had an American dream. Yeah. Right? And I remember mostly when we were kids, especially when like Michael Jordan was still playing basketball, and there was like Space Jam and all these things. I wanted to be in America. I wanted to be in America so bad. Right? But as we are moving on with life, we're realizing, wow, that American dream might be a bit of a facade. Did you live the American dream?
Oof. I mean, sort of. I mean, we were definitely in like an area where I'd say it was the American dream. It was like firmly middle class. But like, I think I had the advantage of being in relative poverty relative to the other kids. Because like, my parents got in some real financial trouble and divorce, and like we lost the house, the bank seized the house and the car and whatever. So like we're middle class till suddenly we weren't. Mm-hmm. And then my mom and I were just living in some shitty apartments that were still barely in the school district. So I think that relative poverty kind of motivated me in a way, because like I started working then because I wanted some like just walking around money that my friends had from their parents, but my parents didn't have anything, right? And so I started working early, and I think like that might have been a good experience for me young. I learned a lot of stuff young, especially working in restaurants as a kid, you know.
That doesn't sound like the American dream.
Yes, no, you're right.
That is the opposite of what the American dream was telling us.
But listen, even in these shitty apartments I talk about, it's like the water was safe to drink. It's like there was a stable electricity supply. Like it was relative to the people I grew up around. You know, like that apartment is like a fine apartment for people who live in, you know, in Nairobi. But there was like, because the kids lived on houses, like kind of like the area we're in now, like with on big gardens and whatnot, and had cars, and some of them might even have a fishing boat for like the local lake and stuff. So yeah, it's like when you're broke and you grow up like around richer kids, it's sort of, I mean, I don't know. It started me working anyway, which got me on a good path.
Yeah. And because when we dream about the American dream, like when Kenyans are talking about, oh my God, I can't, you know, even now people are still trying to go to America. Yeah. Like even with all the things we're seeing in the news. Yeah. At the moment.
Wait, what are the things? Oh, just like divisive politics?
ICE, baby. Yeah. ICE, baby.
ICE, baby.
It's crazy. Like, yeah. I've seen, I know people who have their residence, they have their documents going on great, right? But still get, you know, harassed. So,
yeah, it's not a safe place.
Yeah.
Would you like to go to Russia?
Yeah.
I think I would too. I'd love to see what those places are like. I mean, I'd go anywhere, I think, to check it out, you know, if it was safe. I think for me, because I have an American passport, it might not be a good time. I might not be able to go, yeah.
Where in Russia would you want to go?
Well, definitely I'd want to see Moscow, but I'd love to see like the real cold places in like Siberia, like those icy places, as long as you could stay warm. That'd be kind of cool.
I am not
I bet the
going
food's
to
good
anywhere
too.
with snow, for
you
sure.
don't want that? I think Russia's pretty cold.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is no Russian dream, right?
Yeah.
But you guys are English speakers, so you're going to want to live in England or America or Australia, right? Like that's more...
Nope.
Okay. Okay, not you?
And that's, you see, that's why I was bringing this conversation. The American dream was PR, packaged, and sold to us. The average African doesn't want to leave the continent.
Right.
Everything is here. The only challenge is that we don't have, you know, things aren't necessarily working at the way it seems like it's working in other places. People just want to earn a living. If Kenyans could earn a living here, there is no way on earth guys would be leaving to go anywhere. And that's why I call it PR. It's not that there's anything better happening in these spaces or that people actually want to migrate. That's the thing that people need to understand. Because when we look at, for example, the UK, you'll see people telling us, go back to where? I'm like, go back? What you talking about? You even have some of our art still in your museums. My nigga, this is our home. Okay?
Yeah.
We built this space for you with our resources, nigga. What you talking about? We ain't going nowhere. Bro, if I was in the UK, guys would be having a tough time. Because I'd be those ones. I'd be those ones who are bringing immigrants. You know. So when you look at it like that,
why do Kenyans want to work in America? So I mean, I think part of it's like
it's because of access. If let me give you a perfect example, right? So you have, I saw this guy. He built a resort somewhere in Ukambani, right, in Machakos. This guy worked as a teacher his whole life and then retired, right? And then he sat down and asked himself, "What are we gonna do? This pension, he ain't gonna do shit. I'm going to sit here. I have two choices." And he's worked, a diligent, great teacher his whole life. Like there are people who are like, this man taught me, blah, blah, blah. He's done his job, right? He's retired, but he has no money to retire. So what does a guy do? He says, you know what? I'm still young. I'm in my 50s. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to relocate. He went to the States. He worked. He made money, right? Not that he went there and became a doctor or whatever. He was just doing odd jobs, right? And now he has built a resort.
In America.
In Machakos. Right? And he has come back and now him and his family are set.
Right?
That is, those opportunities, if that situation was available on the continent, people wouldn't leave.
Right.
People wouldn't leave.
Because
Because
if you could make that money and still be with Africans, that would be preferable.
Nobody wants to move to. Remember, Kenya is warm. We live in warm equator. Like the sun and us, we're best friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who wants to leave that and go to ice, baby?
Well, I mean, also it's just like the whole social structure is so much more put together here, and it's so much fallen apart in America.
Societies, you find that the average African is not trying to leave. And I've been to 27 African countries.
Oh, wow.
What I encounter across the continent, people leave because they're looking for work.
Right.
Not because they're looking for neighborhood.
Right. Let me ask you this question. So, the British definitely changed Kenya a lot, right? What do you think is like one thing they left that was like for the better and like the worst thing that they left?
I'm not going to do that because
really?
I'll only not do that because
you won't. Okay.
I'll tell you why. So there's been a consistent push to try and cleanse, right? All the wrongs that the colonialist has done, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is also in pop culture, right?
Right.
So there's been this narrative, especially the past 10 years, where journalists have been combating this colonization and trying to change the perception and say it wasn't all bad, right? And so I did a bit of digging and discovered that actually the Brits in school don't learn about the atrocities. So they clean that part out.
Yeah.
They swept it out. They don't. And then you even notice, even with Americans, there are things that are hidden from how the nation was formed.
For sure.
Right? So with that said, what you've just asked me is very dangerous because I know on the other side how they're using that narrative.
Gotcha.
There is nothing good the white man left us. Zero.
Okay.
Zilch. Okay. And you have to remember that it started with the Portuguese. Right?
Yes.
There is evidence of the Portuguese, and it's not just Fort Jesus, right? Even in the language.
Yeah.
And then after that, the Brits, right? And then if the atrocities were not enough, they took time to clean up, right? So the challenge they're having right now is of people feeling like terrible because it's not them who took part in it, but you live in the dividends.
Totally.
We were discussing this with just somebody here, and we're talking about, say, the UAE, right? The UAE asking us, but us guys, we give you something nice, right? UAE doesn't have even a dot of gold. Zero.
Right.
But they are the biggest exporter of gold.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Because it gets laundered from out of Africa.
Exactly.
Right?
So if somebody from the UAE asks me, but you see the amazing things like the BRT that we set up in TZ, right?
Yeah.
Don't you see that we're doing good things? I can't answer that.
Right.
Let's talk about Sudan.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I just challenge you.
If you tell me about, say, for example, language, right? Because I've been told,
English language.
English language, that's why you guys are able to communicate, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I might be talking from my own position because if English wasn't put in here, I wouldn't be living here right now, right? Like that's part of what allowed me to move here and start businesses and things, right? And also a company code that looked familiar to me, the limited company, the way that the business was structured here was familiar to me, right? So when I say like these are good things, maybe it's a way of saying I like them because they work to my advantage, right? But one thing, though, you said like there's an effort now to kind of cleanse the past. I think on the other thing, it's like I've only learned about a lot of stuff. I've like recently got on Kikuyu TikTok in a big way. And like there's all kinds of newsreels from the BBC during that time reporting on what was happening in Kenya. And it is unbelievable. And then I also recently read, did you read this book, Britain's Gulag, about the detention of basically the whole Kikuyu population and torture and imprisonment or whatever? That's like, I mean, when I read it, it's like, how do I not know this? Like, why haven't there been a million movies about this?
Because they made an effort.
Like the Holocaust has like Schindler's List and probably 20 other movies, including comedies like The Producers or whatever, right? It's like, does anybody know about this stuff?
Took time to document it.
Okay.
You're not going to forget this.
Yeah.
We are not going to.
But the Brits documented too because it's been uncovered, right?
And then they took time to cut it off.
Yeah, but this is what I always think. It's like, you look at the way the BBC's covering that then and think like, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. These people are just trying to hold on to the land that they've cleared, that their grandfather cleared the forest for and have been farming their whole life. And they're saying, hey, I would prefer not to be evicted from my land and then forced to pay some tax to you.
Yeah.
And like the way the BBC report is insane. And then, but what's funny is when you watch it now, you say, well, wow, it's changed. There's better governance. But like, there's something today. There's plenty of things today that it's the exact same view that the British press take on Kenya. I mean, including like, this, like, what happened to the Kikuyu population should be like a story that's been like being told everywhere.
There's so many genocides that happened across the continent.
Right.
Including the first Holocaust of the 19th century that happened on the continent.
Where was that?
That was in Namibia.
Namibia, okay.
Of the
San.
Hero, no.
Oh.
They wiped out the community and left maybe up 1% of them.
I see.
Right? And of course, they were just the Germans were just trying to access the land. So that was their and
I don't know
it
the
was
story.
They put isolation camps. They did everything. That was before they did now the Holocaust in. And the reason why we don't know these stories is because Africans haven't gotten to storytelling. And part of the reason why we have studios like this is so that we can be able to start opening people's eyes to understand that whoever is giving you the information will always give it to you based off of the lens that they have and the prejudice. And so, for example, like if you look at all the information that Africa has about itself, most of the time, it is information that is being told by somebody who's not from Africa. So like books, our history books, the things we used to be taught. You're saying, what were you guys telling me, seriously? And then you start to realize that even the teachers, the access, that the information that they had. Then you look at the education system and you're like, oh, it still had remnants of colonialism.
Right.
Because a lot of these things that you're teaching me seem like they are favoring the person who set up this scenario.
Well, the most insane thing is just that the Kenyans still stick with an education system that models after the British system substantially. I know they've changed it slightly, whatever, but it's like the British needed some huge professional managerial class of paper pushers that could kind of add up some columns and put that document and make a carbon copy and send it to the head office in the post. And it's like they needed armies of millions of people for that. Like that's not what that's not what Kenya needed then, and it's not what it needs right now.
We've
not
never
what it needs
needed
now
that.
either.
But it's a Commonwealth thing. If you check all Commonwealth countries, most Commonwealth countries still maintain the British system of education.
Yes.
And I think I think it's in part laziness, right, of the governments in hand to be like, we could actually do something for our citizens. Say, for example, Kenya switching to CBC.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew for a long time 844 wasn't working, right? The results of 844 is that when a problem arises, there's no problem-solving skills.
Right.
It's all about just what did the manual say. If this part wasn't in the manual,
right. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So these were the indoctrinations that were happening that came even with things like religion and whatnot, which nobody has been questioning. But we are now living in a society with access to information. And that's a key thing, access. Because a lot of people, education was not to edify and inform you of anything. It was for you to pass exams. So the things that were in there were not necessarily to open your eyes.
Yeah.
They were just like, keep your head down and face forward, right?
Right.
So now with the access to information, you're seeing people, even the fact that there's Kikuyu TikTok.
Yes.
You have platforms like TikTok have helped young people be able to access information. So learning English wasn't, to be honest, we're not good at English because we wanted to. Right? So the heritage of Kenyans understanding English is not a beautiful story.
Yeah.
It is one that comes with slavery and colonialism tied together.
Sure.
Because when I was in school, we used to have something called a disc. In other parts, they call it monto or whatever. And basically, it was to shame you for speaking your language or Swahili.
I see.
And elevating English.
I see.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're
saying.
saying.
So when people, like, you know, including yourself, came to me and told me, oh, you speak so well. I don't take that as a compliment.
Oh, shit, sorry.
Because, no, you didn't know. So
did I say it like that? I think I said, like, did you live in Britain or
exactly.
something? Okay, I kind of said it.
Now you get it.
Yeah.
You get it, right? This
speak so
is
well.
because it worked so well. I didn't want to be shamed
right.
for not speaking English, right?
Got it.
You know, even things like saying ati, Somebody would run across the room with like, it's your spoken Swahili. And they give this thing and you're like, now just imagine somebody who in their home, right? Yeah. Your parent speaks to you in mother tongue, right? When you go to school, you're ashamed. You're ashamed of your parent, you're ashamed of your home, you're ashamed of who you are, right? And now you try to be someone aspiring to be closer to the person that gave you this language because they've helped you.
Yeah, but okay, but let me offer this out. Like, couldn't it be like the Dutch are kind of like this now? Like, they all, if you're born in Holland or whatever, like the Dutch, they all speak perfect Dutch, but they can switch any second to speak English to you. But when they're speaking to each other, they'll just go in Dutch, and I'm sure there's little jokes that make sense in Dutch that don't make sense to me that I can't share in that part of the culture. Like, couldn't it be like kind of like that? Like, and then you can be part of the global economy, which is based on English. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, right?
Absolutely. The reason why we're having this conversation is because there is a conversation to drop English as a mandatory in the education system.
Well, I mean, to me that I didn't know it was like it should be. I think that the parents should be able to choose, I guess, or maybe the kids at some age.
Choice is so important.
I mean, I think most of them will still probably learn English.
Yes.
I don't think we'll have some problem with that here. So.
But out of choice, choice we can accept. But there are countries that are choosing to drop Swahili, which I think is very dangerous. Right, because you know how languages go.
Oh, you're talking about Uganda, and they're going to take on French.
Somalia is talking about bringing it into the system. Well, the other people are like, no, we can barely speak Somali, right, and English. Don't add another one. Don't make it hectic.
Right, but isn't Uganda wants to replace it with French? Like, why would be they?
No. Not Uganda wants to replace it with French. One guy who's running and has no chance.
Okay, I see. Okay, got it.
Decided. What can I say here to trend?
And is that because it's like they think there's too much Kenyan influence on the economy, so they want to, or what? Why do they want to ally themselves with the other colonizer, the French?
Yeah, I think a lot of Ugandans don't speak good Swahili anyway.
Yeah, but do they speak good French?
No. So his thinking is that French, half the continent speaks French, right? The other half speaks English. Yeah. Why waste time speaking Swahili? Rather learn French. It opens up more markets for you.
For now, French is kind of a dying language, isn't it?
Half the continent.
Or Africa's keeping it alive,
half.
Right?
Like, there's a good third that speaks French.
Right.
That's francophone.
Yeah. Right.
So we drop English, we drop Swahili.
I think I'm afraid to have an opinion because when I told you spoke well, I was.
No, that happens.
No, I'm just kidding.
That happens.
I mean, English is definitely like you can't really see alternative histories like in a different universe, right? But like, I think the fact that Kenyans speak really good English is part of the reason, like, the economy's taken off over the last 10 or 15 years. Like, the same reason there's a bunch of sushi restaurants is because they speak English so well. And are also lots of other good qualities. Right?
Nice. I don't know. I feel like we put a lot of emphasis on the access that English gives us, but there's also the pain that comes with how we learned English. It's so funny. If you tell the average Kenyan that they have an accent, when they speak English, they don't believe it.
You mean like a
Kenyan accent?
A Kenyan accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kenyan. Do we have an accent?
Everybody. I mean, I used to argue with my wife about this because she used to talk about any other accent other than the American accent of English has an accent. It's like we're the ones who don't, and everybody else. I think it's just the perspective. Yeah. Of course, you guys have an accent. Exactly. I have an accent. Everybody has an accent.
But Kenyans don't hear their own accent.
Well, I don't think you ever can.
So you know how...
I don't think you ever can,
You can hear the Ugandan accent.
Yeah.
You can hear the South African accent.
Yeah. It's because you grew up around Kenyans.
What the fuck? There's
it's
no
just
Kenyan
like
accent?
You don't notice the oxygen in this air. Just you're not being like, oh yeah, that's oxygen 16%. It's like it's just you hear it all around you every day.
There are some accents that are just out there. For example, like you sound like a typical American, but when somebody from say Tennessee, that's an accent. Right? That's Southern drawl. Yeah. That's an accent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was talking about this when I was on Phil's podcast.
When a Japanese is speaking English. Goddamn, that's an accent.
Yeah, that's an accent. The Nigerian accent's insane, though.
You know what I'm saying?
Because it's almost like the accent has become like it's a different language, like the pigeon.
I beg now.
Yeah.
You know what I say?
Poa?
When Jamaicans are speaking,
Yeah.
that's an accent, right?
Yeah.
What? Where is our accent?
You've got one.
No, bro.
Of course you do. There's no such, like, only like a machine.
You guys, do
a
we have an
robot
accent?
Of course you do.
What?
It's because you're still here.
It's because you hang out with, well, I don't know. No,
No,
of course you have an
I-
accent. Everybody's got an accent.
that's what
It's the
I
style of
refuse.
talking. Everyone has an accent. It's just like the intonation of the.
I always think that other people have accents.
Yeah, no,
not
I
ourselves.
remember that. Like, it's, like, still Americans will say that. Like, a foreigner will start to talk like a white person, and like, you have an accent. It's as if you don't, right?
So wait, I need to stop watching American TV.
Yeah.
Everybody
that's
else
yeah.
has an accent.
Yes.
Not me.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, you came to Kenya 15 years ago.
Yeah.
15.
Yes.
That means a lot of things have changed.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
for one, there was no expressway.
Right.
But like, what things have you visibly seen change?
I mean, it's definitely gotten richer. Like, you can see that around you. Even you are, as a youngin', you can see like that. Buildings are going up really fast. And I know it's like there's a ton of like real like good private investment, profit-making investment that's building these buildings. A lot of times, like, people think it's all wash or whatever. It's like, no, it's like this city's growing. It's
This
got
is
its
not
tourism.
wash?
Not entirely. I mean, some, right? But you can't have, I don't think you can have 7% economic growth like year on year for like 12 straight years where it's like wash. Like, there's not that much wash.
I like that you mentioned that
Because the economy's got to grow somewhere for money for people to get richer,
but
right?
isn't the World Bank
Yeah.
highlighting that the Kenyan shilling is stagnating, that it might be propped? And then isn't Kenya in a list of basically legitimate wealth
Wait, like on the good side or
scam
the bad
countries?
side?
Countries
like
where
money laundering,
scam,
high risk of money
Nigeria
laundering.
and another country where
Just
they
got
moved.
clear.
And Kenya
That's
is
embarrassing
still in
for
there.
you guys.
You know what I'm saying?
Because like usually it's just the Nigerians that get kicked
You
out.
know what
Remember
I'm
the
saying?
Nigerians got kicked out of UAE? I went to the Seychelles with a bunch of Nigerians a few years ago, and then like 4 months after we went, like they Nigerians weren't allowed to go there anymore. Not because of the guys I went with, but like they just like will stop. So it's embarrassing that Kenya is like not on the thing yet.
It's
so.
interesting that you clear us from the wash list and just saying that this could be
I mean,
legit
yeah,
money.
no, I mean, there's real economic growth here, and it's just because there's a lot of smart people building businesses.
Yeah. What else?
I mean, there's a lot more foreigners living here. Like the sort of aid industry and the sort of NGO or the government-tied stuff has really grown.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of like big communities of white people here, and more are coming, I think, with the UN, And like it's kind of like NGO types paid in dollars. Like they were here when I got here, but like now they're really here. Yeah, like I think Nairobi's become a very like nice placement if you work for the International Red Cross or whatever NGO or sort of government-tied organization, the British Council or whatever. It's like this is a plum post because you got like all the comforts of home, but good weather and nice people.
So nothing has changed in the 15 years except economy.
And more, yeah. You tell me one, and I'll tell you if I agree. What do you think's changed?
I live here.
I mean, it's really interesting to see, like out in like Kileleshwa and Kilimani, like around these areas. It's like you see it on the ground, like growing up with all these high rises. It's like in America, it's like you don't see economic growth this fast. Like that's the most remarkable thing, I think, about what's happened here over the last 15 years. Like that's the most visible thing. I mean, I don't know if the politics is that different, but I don't follow politics that close. Like I couldn't tell you like the difference between Kibaki, who was in place when I was here, and Ruto now is like what they're doing. I don't really know. I know a few superficial things, like we got this housing levy that comes out of my thing now. Bummer, right? But I don't, I don't know. What are you thinking?
No,
I feel like you're expecting something better from me.
No, I was just trying to get an understanding of what you've seen in the past 15 years that have stood out. And
I mean, one thing to tie it in earlier, it's like a lot of the British government is one of the ways they still wield their influence here is through like sort of an investment subsidiary called British International Investment. Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. And they've sort of expanded here. Like they're really like the British government is an owner of lots of private business here and like has a much bigger presence on the ground here than they had before, which I think is a strange phenomenon, because you'd think the British should be like, you know, pulling back, like the remnants of colonialism should be, like things should be more and more Kenyanized, but like there's huge businesses here that like without the support of the British government wouldn't exist, and they're sort of distorting the economy here in a way that I don't think they could get away with back in the UK. So that's interesting.
That's interesting. That's interesting that you
Yeah.
picked that one. Okay.
Okay.
So
Anything there?
yeah, no, I mean it's interesting that you mentioned the UK's presence in Kenya.
Yeah, I mean they're like owners. They still like invest in a lot of companies here, and like they don't even do that in the UK. It's like sort of they justify it as they're rebuilding, like they're helping rebuild the former colonies.
So,
But like it's actually you know, it's not a helpful force. It's destructive.
So do you have kids?
Yeah, I got 3 kids. I have twin boys who are 13 that live here, and then a 20-year-old who's in university in the States.
What's school like here?
I mean, my kids are in a British private school, so the biggest differences I notice is like between the British system and the American system, and the way they do that stuff. I mean, I know about 844 just from like my staff,
Yeah.
the people I'm close with every day, telling me about 844. Yeah, because it works sometimes. Like some of the things they teach you in 844, it's like you have to unlearn in a business. Like, you know, the way you structure communication in 844, it's like you got an introduction, then you lead to the body, and then finally the conclusion. But like what I tell them is like, no, like with business, it's like you always start with the conclusion. Hey, Chad, we need to buy another 1,000 application forms because we're running out. Okay, like go ahead. You know, not like, hey, Chad, this has come to our attention that the application form stockpile has gone down and dwindled from 600 down to 250. It is there with my humble, you know, request to buy more application forms. It's like, no, you start with what you want. That's, like in business, it's like that's always more efficient. And in
Yeah.
844, they teach the opposite.
The opposite.
I think they teach us the opposite too in America, but I think they hammer it into you guys way more. Like, there's way more introduction on things in business conversations that like than
Really? You guys
yeah,
are giving you
then what's helpful.
Random stuff instead of just getting to the
Yeah,
point.
because remember, like
But
844,
it's cutting,
modeled
you know,
on the British
courtesy.
system, like paper pushers, civil servants, these guys were just pushing bullshit around all day anyway, taking a report and writing it to whether, you know, not doing anything. You're in the East Africa administration, so it's like, you know, if you want to train people to push paper around, like it's a good system. You know, you can produce more, you know, there's more words in that report, so.
In terms of culture shock, like when you
Yeah.
came to Kenya, what's some of those things that really stood out for you?
You know, I think, I mean, first of all, like you notice immediately how deferential Kenyans are to white people.
What does that mean?
It means like they think you're a hot shot having not spoken a word to you. You can just be the guy pulling in the Uber at the restaurant, and like the Ascaris are snapping to the attention, and like, you know, the waiters think you're a big deal and whatever, like just from the white skin. Like you immediately are
And
escalated.
you- I mean-
you immediately get escalated, like, you know.
Yeah, VIP.
Yeah.
You get like extra services.
Yeah, I mean, just people like, you get way more respect than you necessarily do.
Yeah.
And, you know, more than a Kenyan in a lot of cases. Like, I hear that, you know, when I go out with, like, Kenyans, like, we get better service if I'm in the group than if otherwise, because, like, they snap to attention, because the white guy might complain. Though we are kind of good at complaining, so I think that's, yeah.
Really?
I'm occasionally, you know, scolding the Java staff, or why did it take me 18 minutes to get a coffee, occasionally, yeah. I've become more patient, though, you know.
15 years.
Yeah. Things to move sometimes a bit slower here, but not always.
The expat community is about to grow even bigger, with the UN sending some of its offices here. What are your thoughts on expat life?
I mean, I think you should immigrate to a country if you're going to like benefit the economy. I think it's like these things where you get funded by outside organizations or governments, but then you live in the country, are sort of, you know, I don't know. And like things like the UN, like it's really hard to tell what the results are. And, you know, it's funny that these organizations are allowed to operate here and not be transparent. Like, this is always a strange thing to me. in like the Nairobi Stock Exchange, I can go buy shares of a company, right? And then I become a part owner of a company. And then I'm entitled to receive like the financial reports. So I can go on Safaricom's website and read their full financials. And I can even go to a meeting and ask a question and say, why'd you guys spend so much with this Ethiopia venture, right? And this idea that there's these organizations that sort of operate here that have no such accountability of any kind and don't have to like make their funding known to the public is very strange to me. Because, I mean, as you saw, like when USAID ended operations there, are you familiar with this like aid organization? It's like all these NGOs shut down and layoffs. It's like, well, if these were all US government funded, why were they called NGOs? These seem to be like little outposts of the American government pushing sort of some agenda about, you know, whatever it might be. What do you think?
True. I mean, I agree with you. What I'm asking is, what do you think of expat life? For someone who's living
Expat
here as
life.
an expat. Isn't that what aren't you an expat?
Yeah, expat, yeah, expatriate, like somebody living outside. I mean, I prefer to say I'm an immigrant because I think that expat's just the pretentious word for immigrant. I think it's the word that you use if you have white skin for immigrant. Like the cleaner from South Sudan is here for economic reasons. She can earn more money here than whatever, or have a better life, say, right? Like maybe it's more peaceful as well as like, right? And like I'm here for the same reason. Like I'm here to create value in the economy. I mean, I'm working for private businesses trying to create value and investing in them as well, right? So, I mean, yeah, that expat, I don't know. It's just, I think it's just a pretentious word for a foreigner. It's like a foreigner with white skin that's been around for a while. Yeah. But like I used to mingle a lot with like that community, especially when the kids were young, because parents from the school. So it's like you'd meet people, and I mean, there's some really nice people. But one thing I noticed is way too many of that community here works in the aid industry. Like if you drill through what they do, it's like a lot of it is sort of poverty porn and rackets. It's like these organizations, maybe originally they were trying to solve clean water or whatever, but then it got too difficult. But they've got this great fundraising machine, and the whites live here who paid US dollars salaries. They have great lives. They got a driver, they got a cook. You know, they go to Diani and book the Airbnb with the chef. Like they've got a great life, and it's like, well, okay, there's no real results here, but like it's a great life. And like, I think that describes like a huge amount of the people who work in that industry. And then like I've hung out with people from the UN as well, like socially, and like you'd think if they worked for like, I don't know, the food program, they'd be like talking, when they talked about work, they'd be talking about like something around their mission. They're never talking about that. They're talking about like how the new grade G5 employees will get 2 extra vacation days next year, and I don't know yet if the senior would. Like it's all just internal blah 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 and politics. It's like that stuff, that they teach you, the professional managerial class, like create just complex shit of paperwork that kind of shifts around. Like they're all in sort of seem to be in the paperwork business. I'm sure there's good ones, by the way. And if you go to my kid's school, if you're a parent of somebody at my kid's school, I'm not talking about you.
I think.
Like, I wish when there was expats, they'd be business people. Like, I'm here investing in a blah. Like, I'm building right? Like, if you're coming and risking your own money, like that seems to be a better use of like some organization that thinks Africa is still really poor and that there's famine in Kenya. Like, I'm sure there's some malnutrition in Kenya, but there's not the kind of famine that the Americans pitch when they write their check to the charity. They're picturing the kids with distended stomachs. Like, they think that still happens here, right? Like, people in America will ask me, they'll assume I've seen famished children. I've never seen a famished child.
Where do you think
I've seen a lot of fat kids.
Where do you think this kind of information is coming from?
Well, it's like something becomes, it's like things over time, I think, become a racket. It's like, I also think the NGO and the charity, that organizational structure is really prone to like abuse and like, because, the example, there was this charity in the US called the March of Dimes that was originally set up to solve polio, and a dime is the 10-cent coin in the US. It's like, everybody just donate a dime, and you donate a dime, and across all the millions of Americans, it was like a lot of money, and maybe we could solve polio. And then it did solve polio, or it's like its contributions to the research along with government support solved it. So like what they should do kind of is shut down, right? But they got a bunch of employees, and some of those people make good money, and they don't want to shut down, and they've got a fundraising machine, so they keep it going, and now it's like they support general African stuff. So they need good pictures, so some of the stuff March of Dimes today probably supports, like, I'm sure in their fundraising letter that you get in the mail, you know, there's some picture of some kid next to a thatched hut and whatever. You know, like they use that, like there's still, I think that holdover of like Africa as a place that's, you know, constantly in starvation is going to hold for a long time in like the European and Americans' minds. Like a lot of people just seem to believe it. It's just something they believe. People assume I've seen famine because I live in Africa. I've seen like the sushi restaurant, right?
And I think that falls into who owns the media. It
Yes.
goes back down to the conversation we're having about Russia, because if the money...
Yeah, media doesn't correct the narrative, that's for sure. I mean, these are private charities that are putting out fundraising letters with their pictures. It's their business, but the media certainly doesn't correct it and expose them.
I think also if you have consistently been told a certain narrative about a people, it becomes easy to then... And you're right. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think there's any business somebody should be coming from another country to come in the name of help to work here in a job that can be done by somebody who can do it here. Right? So, for example, I know a lot of people who are project managers.
Yeah. I mean, that's what among the other problems I have with the NGO sector is they have huge amount of workers on those special skills. I forget what it's called. It's like no Kenyan can do this job.
And that's crazy.
And it's nuts. It's just because they've defined the job description a certain way that fits the white person that's going to fill that job. You need to have a master's in either poverty economics or water, and she'll have it because she's, grew up in Washington, D.C., whatever. It's like they'll define it and say, no Kenyan fits this description. But like ultimately they're paper pushers, right? I mean, I think and that's why I'm sort of separating the people who are genuinely like coming and risking their own money, trying to make a living here or whatever, versus the ones that are just on the racket. And I think at the charities and the NGOs, you just get loads of that. There's a million Kenyans who could do that job.
Absolutely.
I mean, but like the entrepreneurs are usually on investor visas where they've brought money into the country. So
and I think
it's a bit different.
I think the continent is changing. We're talking about the constituency of the internet that is opening the eyes of the young Kenyans on the continent and just showing them like, look, these things didn't work. They don't make sense. They're not here to help us. If it's, for example, things like, okay, do I believe that there are organizations that are doing amazing stuff? You need to raise funds. Like, I'll give you an example. With just USAID, which is not an aid organization, removing the funding that they were giving, say, for example, to Kakuma, right? I know you said that your friends expect you to have seen kids with malnourished kids, right?
Right.
We don't have that anymore because this extreme poverty, malnourishment, those pictures kind of sort of ended. So places like Kakuma, food would be provided and you don't get this kind of, this level of malnourishment.
Yes.
But for the first time in 20 years, we're now starting to see, just 2 months after USAID has been pulled, right? We're starting to see malnourished kids, right? So yes, this funding helps.
I'm sure there's something, yeah.
And that's what the narrative is. No, but we're helping. I'm always asking, right? At the front line, it's always Africans. The front line, right? So
of the ones waiting for help.
No, the front line of the ones providing the help.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So the ones on ground, right? The ones who don't hold big offices and make the decisions. Yeah. Those ones are Africans, right?
Right.
But the offices are full of people from different nationalities, right? Pushing, and we know you are in the allowances you can take your kids to like Brook House or whatever. You can live in like big houses in Runda and
totally
all these houses that guys asking who's renting these houses, right?
Right.
These guys with amazing salaries and then the job just takes 4 years, right?
Right.
Or the contract has to be changed. You don't leave. Because
they never leave.
is the place to be.
Of course,
right?
it's so nice.
So
like,
this
why
is
would
a
you?
conduit,
I mean,
sort of to get to Africa. But here's the question. Remember, the job here is to try and alleviate people out of poverty, right?
yes, yeah.
If you're spending half of the money financing salaries, isn't
totally.
this system
And they're dollar salaries too, so they're
messed up?
insulated from if the shilling, like
Fluctuates or-
yeah,
yeah.
fluctuates, whatever. They're protected from that stuff.
That
like,
is
no,
the
it's a
craziest
great
stuff.
life.
Yeah. But that's what the
And,
average.
and I'm sure some of them have, like you said, it. Like I'm sure USAID, like there's some, like, they need enough to justify it. But like, I don't know, man. I think
everybody should, when it comes to aid, think about it. I mean, just genuinely think about it, right?
Yeah.
The locals in that place are better suited, especially if they're
100%.
to reach that area. We understand the nuances. We understand the people.
Yeah.
We understand the things,
Yeah.
right? You're coming all the way from Denmark to come teach Kenyans how to interact with Somalis.
Right. Oh no, it's crazy. No, I mean, you see some crazy stuff.
Yeah, but
they bring in. I remember, like, sometimes these international investors will provide, like, somebody, like, giving technical assistance on some project, some, like, agricultural project or whatever, and like, oh, we're providing this white person who has this supreme knowledge about how to fertilize your blah blah blahs, yeah. But like, so often I've seen it, it's like when this sort of thing comes in, it's like this person doesn't actually, like, they are an academic, like they have a master's in, like, agriculture economics, so they know, like, some stuff that they remember from their books, but like, they don't know anything about the soil. Well, it's like it's like, and really it's a jobs program for that little girl because she's 25, she just finished her master's, she's building her resume, so now she's going to come do technical assistance for like a year with Africans. So when she goes back to America, now she can get the plum job with Pfizer or McKinsey or Goldman Sachs or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's resume building.
And
it's like, it's not that person, like, is like the biggest thing is like, let's hire so-and-so's daughter who needs something to do, right?
And
Often, and this ends up so much, and there's certain investors I've seen in this market where it's on this, like, that when they send down technical assistance, like a crony somehow of, like, one of the principles. Yeah.
This has also spilled into the private sector, because when we see this basically means that it's okay, I don't want to call it nepotism because people are from different parts of the world, but it's sort of like a lack of trust in Africans.
Totally.
Right? And this has also manifested in the startup space.
Yes, absolutely.
If I went today,
the foreign funded startup space, for sure.
Literally,
yeah.
There's a project who I'm trying to raise funds for, and basically someone came and told me, look, the fastest way for you to get funding, get a Caucasian on your board.
Yeah, we're good for that. The skin, it unlocks.
Get a Caucasian on your board, and you'll be good.
Yeah.
And I remember when he said that.
It's true, though.
I was so mad because I thought, I was just like, why the fuck do I need a Caucasian? I'm from Kenya. And then we had the conversation again, and he said, you need to understand where the money is coming from, what they understand about this space.
That's right.
So they are just like, we'd rather have John, who probably doesn't even know shit, but we're safer with him, right? Because he can straighten out these Africans. And that made me sad.
Yeah.
It pissed me off.
Yeah. No,
but then
for sure.
we continued having the conversation. Then he asked, okay, cool. Where are the Africans giving the venture capitalists? Where are the African venture capitalists?
It's like, if you're going to beg these foreigners for money, then it's like you have to deal with that they're going to, like, basically put in people that they trust, and, like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, it's what I think is when they sometimes say, like, institutionalized racism, because it's like you meet the guys there and they're the nicest guys and you don't think they're racist in their heart at all, but somehow they only end up funding white founders, or when they fund a African founder, they'll give him like 1/10. If he gets like $100,000, I'll get $1 million, yeah, for sure. And you can see this across the things, and they trumpet the press release when they fund an African one, but then you compare the size of the investment, it's way smaller. Like, they do not give the same sort of thing as they do. Like, I mean, you can see it in the data. I mean, I don't know, sometimes these, like, startup space is such like a rah-rah space that, like, people don't write, like, many negative articles, but, like, this is definitely a phenomenon here that should be talked about more.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of this startup space seems to be like, I don't know. it's sometimes like a jobs program for mediocre whites who've like ended up in Kenya and want to live like millionaires, but they're not actually that clever. So they can be the whatever head of product or like a business development officer or head of strategy, because these are kind of loosey-goosey positions, right? Yeah. It's not like being a physician or being able to, a neuroscientist or whatever. It's like, head of strategy, like that can be anybody, right?
Yeah.
Put in your favorite white person. So
That, I find that so wild.
It's wild.
And when you guys decided to set up,
Yep.
when you were coming to Kenya, what was your thinking behind?
For M-Kopa?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have any ties to Kenya. My two partners were kind of technology guys. One was like more of a veteran and one was younger, but like they were both fascinated with the M-Pesa system. And one of them was directly involved in like the design when he was at Vodafone in the UK. And I met those guys at business school. What was the question you asked me, Sheila?
How did you guys decide to come to Kenya?
Yeah, so they were fascinated with the M-Pesa system and like basically thought that, like, had this instinct that I think is right. It's like when you have these kind of groundbreaking technologies that all of a sudden really change the way a country works, it's like there's new technologies that you can stack on top of those technologies. And that's how we developed, like, they had started on it like a year before I joined, and then I joined because they needed a finance guy. And I'd worked in banking for 10 years, investment banking. So they figured I knew what I was doing on the finance side.
Nice.
And I tagged up with them. But it was because of the M-Pesa system, yeah.
Yeah. And so far, you're staying in Kenya. What's that been like?
I mean, this is great. I mean, it's home now.
I mean, what are the connections of where you came from and Kenya?
I mean, none.
Like,
None,
what do
really.
you see in your life? This reminds me of home.
Oh, right. I don't know. I mean, I don't miss that much here, honestly. I mean, usually it's just like food, it's like when I go home, it's like now you can go to this place and get this burger that kind of tastes like it's like the food you ate as a child. I think that's like what you always miss. It's
when
like
you say food, you say burger?
a burger. Yeah. Yeah. You know how your comfort food might be like porridge or something like that?
Yeah.
Mine is the Burger King long chicken sandwich. So when Burger King came here, I was like, oh, thank God. Because when I have like an upset tummy, that's like, and when I'm finally ready to eat again, like that's the one thing. So yeah, we're white. This is how it works with us.
So there's
Burger
no like
King.
I just can't wait to go home and taste my mama's githeri or something.
Yeah.
What a traditional dish is like. And
Yeah.
please don't say burger. Please don't say burger.
I don't know. I can't. I mean, just simple, like, I don't know, pretty simple food.
Rice and beans,
Yeah,
something.
no, you could, for me, like a white breast, it was like, it was weird, like you'd perhaps have rice, but just like, not as like with the stew, it'd be like a side dish with butter and like a piece of grilled meat, like beef or pork. And then.
What?
Yes. And then.
Where's the soup?
There's no soup. Like the plate has different sectors. And then there's the broccoli, that's over there that you're supposed to eat because it's like something you're supposed to do as a kid.
Wait, you said rice?
And then maybe you have like
With
a little,
butter?
yes,
And then
a pork chop.
pork chop, okay.
Say. And if you get a little cheeky, maybe you put like a little barbecue
So,
sauce in there, pork chop.
soup is not a thing.
Not as much. Not like the way you guys are.
Have you
where-
been to? No, don't say you guys.
You guys.
Which guys?
You people.
Which people?
You people. Kenyans.
Morima.
No, like Africans, where it's like you've got the starch and then you've got the soup.
Yeah, soup is important.
So.
You gotta be like, psh, you gotta dish it.
Like
dude.
white people don't, I don't know, or at least we didn't eat like that growing up.
You don't eat starch. Rice only, right? Like,
No, I can eat, no, I mean, I can eat anything.
like, you know what that is?
What's that?
Like, I've caught it.
Ugali?
And then now you dip it, you make a nice
Ugali's
roll,
not bad.
and then you, what do you mean
I
it's
put a
not
little,
bad?
I put a little butter
I've
on
thrown
it
my
sometimes,
wally-
little blue band. I mix a little blue band through there. It's got a nice, maybe a little sugar.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of nice.
What did
Try
you say?
it. You take ugali, microwave for 45 seconds, add like a pat of butter or blue band, even better, and some sugar, brown sugar if you got it. Mix it up and you got like a little kind of a sweet cereal. No? Am I not? Am I gonna?
What the fuck? What the hell are you on, bro? You put sugar in your ugali?
Yeah, I sometimes, occasionally. Not if I'm out at a restaurant, I don't ask for like sugar. But at home, I'd be known to.
Like,
yeah.
why?
I don't know. It tastes nice. Honestly, it tastes too plain to me when it's on its own. Like you guys eat it. You guys, you people.
I'm glad we had this
What's
conversation.
what's my most racist trait? Is it that I think English is like the best, or what do you think?
Is that one.
Is that the biggest
no,
one?
it's not racist. It's even with people who are not from here, they come to you, they're like, wow, you speak good English. And I'm like, should I tell you the colonial history behind my English? I was. Did you guys ever shika the monto? Yeah? You see? That's why everybody speaks good English. In TZ, they were lax with that thing.
Yeah.
They were just like, let everybody speak how they want to be speaking,
right,
please.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why they were there.
How should I compliment you in the future? You're a good communicator?
No. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's not about, most people don't have an issue with it.
Okay.
I just have an issue with it because I told you the story of how they're trying to whitewash this shit. And we're like, no.
Yeah.
You don't want to know from this shit.
Oh yeah, but what I was saying, like, it's less whitewashed than ever these days, I think. Like, all this Mau stuff is, I mean, who are these heroes that are researching into the BBC archives and finding this and putting it online? It's amazing.
Let me give you...
It's amazing.
Let me give you the leakage. Go to YouTube. There's a channel called British Pathy. Right?
Okay.
So what the British used to do, they had the normal channel, and then they had the channels that would tell them news about the colonies. It was called British Pathy. Mm-hmm. So British Pathy is the most racist shit you'll ever see in your entire life, right? Because, and I always tell people, you see, like the Holocaust, the question people need to ask themselves is, did every German want Jews dead? They want them to be in those? No.
Of course not.
It's good propaganda. It's like when America is going to Saigon, right? You need good propaganda, right? When the Brits were in Kenya or in the 70 colonies that they had, bro, they needed to keep telling their people stories,
totally.
Right? So they'd be like, they're savages.
Yeah, we're civilized.
And then you see the video, you're like, all right, here's my money. Take it. Go save those people. Go take them Christianity. You get? So they can come and do the atrocities. So they'd not document the atrocities. They would hide them and say we had to chop them because they were, like they call Mau terrorists.
Right. Yeah.
They call them terrorists.
Yeah.
So the locals here would be, the Brits would be saying, oh, you know those,
right.
Hey,
no, I mean, it's amazing to see that. I'm glad people are pulling that old stuff, those old photographs and stuff like that in BBC headlines and things like that. Because it's like, like I said, like this whole Kikuyu detention, like I really did. I mean, I sort of might have heard about it, but it's like, when I've learned about it, it's like, holy shit, like why isn't there 25 Hollywood movies about this? This is nuts.
And that's why we have, because you think about it, why would Hollywood be doing a film? What's their agenda? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For Wakanda to exist, there needed to be an agenda, right? So why it's so important to pay into the arts of, and why we have studios like this, and is because we have to tell our own stories with our own lens, right? Because when you're seated on the other side, say for example, someone who's seated in Russia or Ukraine, when we're seeing the same news, we have a different thistle because of the things we're experiencing.
Sure.
And so how we tell it is based off of, and I have a theory about some of the stories that are in the Bible, is because of the typography of, when you say milk and honey, to somebody who lives in a place like Africa, for example, I mean not Africa, but like a place that is fertile.
Right.
My idea of heaven is not milk and honey, bro.
What is it?
There's abundance. So you get, in a place where it's desert, when you slam that milk, sure.
Jeez, yeah. So
where are you going to get honey in a desert?
That's true.
You get?
Yeah.
So
you're having
that's heaven. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Us here, we're like, the Masai is walking around with the Kibuyu, man. We're just like heaven every day. Stop on the side of the road, he pour you some heaven.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
for
saying?
sure.
Yeah, so
for sure.
These stories, I think, are so important because it's difficult to remove the nuance. I can't be able to tell when I'm watching a CBS report where this person, which part of America they grew up, when they tell the story. There's a lady who got fired on BBC recently because she said... it was written on the teleprompter, people who get pregnant.
Oh, right.
People
I
who
think
get
I heard
pregnant.
about this, right.
And then she said people get pregnant. Then women who get pregnant, right?
Right.
Because
Right, I get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
So, but if the same news was being told by somebody who seated in a Nairobi studio, this wouldn't be an
Right.
issue.
Right.
Exactly.
No, I love like the kind of citizen journalism that's going on among Kenyans. I mean, that was one thing we talked about this during like Mano Mano. It's like, it was so funny that like, there's people from the press there that like have a badge that say press, and they've got like a camera with a lens. And like when the fire hose comes out, they're spraying all the people with their phones, but not the guy that says press. It's like, we're all press now. And it's like, just all you need to do is, I mean, because there's all sorts of different angles on every story. It's like you just give your version of it. I think it's a service. Like I think like everybody should do it. Like everybody should be like, but just with local shit. Don't try to like, if you live in America and you want to tell the stories about South Sudan, it's like, maybe you leave it to somebody more local.
Yeah. And so
by the way, also with the charity, like if you have $50 extra to donate and you donate it to Africa, like you are not thinking very creatively if you're in America. It's like, don't you have a neighbor you could like take out to lunch who's like lonely, who doesn't get out much, so you get them cleaned up and dressed up?
Cut his mic. The aid has got to get to Africa, sir.
It all gets stolen. It never even leaves America.
If Jerome must get that cash, let him get that cash. Okay? Whoever is getting the cash, see, my fellow brother, sister, watching from whatever part of the world, if you've been filled with the Spirit and you feel like you want to send some money to Africa, please find an African on TikTok, ask them for their number, send them the money. Direct. I prefer direct donations than an organization. But you can donate to my organization. Chad, it's been great having you here.
Thank you.
I'm excited that we had this conversation. There's a lot to learn there. And before I let you go, because we love money. Everybody love money. Say,
Oh, yeah, in the house.
Douglas, just remember you said no. You just remember you didn't raise your hand.
Just the ladies.
Right? Everybody loves money. Everybody loves money. I feel like guys love more. Now I feel like guys love money more than babes now.
Yeah.
You know why? Because babes can access cash. As long as it's men, ladies can access cash. No, I'm joking.
No, I don't think you're joking.
No, there are guys out there who just donate. They're just like, hey, how you doing? Let me buy you a drink.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was just about to buy it, but use and go and sit at your
use your $50 for that. Keep it the local economy.
I love it.
Don't send it to some NGO.
I love it. But we're just almost done with 25 and we're going into 26. And I was reading some of the things, we got to start looking at what are trends we think where money is going to flow into, right? And I'm curious, as somebody who, gives people money.
Do I? Sometimes.
Right?
Sometimes.
As a business.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's true. Yep, that's right.
What are some of the trends that you are looking and you're saying, wow, 2026 is going to be good for this?
I mean, I just think it seems to me like the economic growth here and like the middle class getting bigger is kind of unstoppable. So like just stuff that's like stuff that the middle class like, I think like you've seen this, it's like as new types of businesses open up like that. Did we already talk about this Museum of Illusions? Did we talk about this already? Damn it, my memory's so bad. Or like, downtown now, like in CBD, there's a new like fancy ice cream place called YOLO. And it's like these sorts of things are popping up. I mean, you got to be able to run a business well. But like, if you can run a business well that serves kind of middle class and middle class parents, like buying experiences for their children, like I think you'll win. You just got to run it well. It seems to me that those things are succeeding here. Like a new thing comes in, like people want to go to it, and they have like it has kind of staying power. So,
and for someone who's looking to invest in Kenya, what would you tell them?
I just keep your money in the bank. And if in
the bank?
Yeah, and unless you have you have your own business, like invest in your business. Like you are an entrepreneur.
You're talking to people who are, we're speaking to the world.
Yeah. I mean, if you can run a business, if you have some savings and you can run your own, just for learning, like you'll probably get your ass kicked because it's hard, right? Like if it was easy, I always say this, like if business was easy, like everybody you'd see on the street would be a millionaire. Like people decide they want to sell shoes on Instagram. Like there's no guarantee it's going to succeed, and it probably won't, because if it was that easy, whatever. But some people figure out how to run it well, to manage the stock, to market themselves on social media, to keep like a good display store to keep this different size in stock, like all those things, and manage their costs. And if you have like a shop assistant, make sure there's controls where she's not stealing or whatever. It's like, if you can run it well, these things, you know, it just seems like Nairobi especially keeps getting richer and richer. So you lean into that, and you don't bet on like businesses for like serving the poor, which is kind of like M-Kopa when we started. It was sort of a bet that people would use solar panels because they wouldn't be connected to KPLC, but KPLC ended up kind of taking 75% of the country, and the other 25% are very difficult. So that was a business that was betting on the ongoing existence of the poor when we were selling solar. Now I would bet on businesses that like bet on the rising middle class.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chad. It's been a
You're welcome.
fabulous conversation.
It's been fun.
And
Sorry about all the racism.
Yeah.